Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. LangGraph, Episode 6 of 18. Pick the wrong design paradigm early on and you will either write 100 lines of boilerplate for a simple script or weave a spaghetti nightmare out of basic Python functions. Today, we are focusing on choosing your abstraction, graph versus functional. It is easy to assume one of these APIs is inherently more powerful or more production-ready than the other. That is false. Under the hood, both the Graph API and the Functional API compile down to the exact same runtime engine. They both support persistence, streaming, and execution control in exactly the same way. The choice between them is purely about your mental model and how you want to express your logic. Let us look at the Functional API first. This relies on standard imperative Python control flow. You write normal Python functions, flag them with a decorator, and route your execution using standard if statements and loops. State management here is entirely function scoped. Data flows strictly from the return value of one function into the arguments of the next. There is no shared global memory object floating around in the background. If your workflow is linear, or if it has predictable, tightly scoped logic, the Functional API keeps your code lean and familiar. You avoid the overhead of defining graph structures entirely. The Graph API requires a different mindset. Instead of calling functions directly, you define a shared global state schema. You then write nodes, which are small functions whose only job is to read and mutate that shared state. Finally, you explicitly wire those nodes together using edges. Routing is not handled by a conditional statement hidden deep inside a function body. Instead, the logic that dictates where the application goes next is pulled out into explicit conditional edges declared at the top level of the graph. Here's the key insight. You choose between them based on how your system handles state and routing over time. Picture a developer building a basic data extraction tool. It runs a single language model, parses the output, and saves it. The Functional API is perfect for this. It is fast to write and easy to read. But fast forward 3 months, that simple script is being refactored into a complex multi-agent system. Now you have a researcher agent handing off data to a writer agent, a critic agent pushing back with corrections, and an execution pause waiting for a human manager to approve the final draft. If you try to build that asynchronous multi-agent workflow with the Functional API, the imperative approach breaks down. You end up passing massive data payloads up and down deep function call stacks. Your routing logic gets buried inside deeply nested conditionals. This is the exact moment you migrate to the Graph API. The Graph abstraction shines here because it decouples state from execution. Because the state is global and shared, your individual agent nodes do not need to pass heavy data structures to each other. A node simply reads the shared state, updates the specific key it's responsible for, and finishes. The explicit edges take over, making the routing highly visible. You can look at the graph definition and immediately map out the entire workflow without reading a single line of business logic. You use the Functional API when the control flow is simple enough to read top to bottom, but you switch to the Graph API when the routing becomes complex enough that you need to draw it on a whiteboard. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone.